Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be exploring secure and resilient software development.
Yeah, it's a really important topic
It
for
is.
anybody building software these days.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're a seasoned developer or just kind of curious about the digital world and how it's all put together.
Exactly. And we're going to be using excerpts from the book, Secure and Resilient Software Development.
Great book.
It is a good book, and we're going to be focusing specifically on Chapter 4,
Chapter 4.
Proven Best Practices for Resilient Applications.
Love it.
Uh,
Yeah, the goal today is to really try to give everybody the knowledge to understand the core principles
yeah.
of building software that can not only withstand attacks, but also failures.
Yeah, gracefully handle those failures
That's right. Yeah.
instead of just crashing and burning.
Exactly.
So we're going to unpack some key concepts, explore how these principles can be translated into real-world benefits for developers and users.
Yeah, and hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a deeper appreciation for the complexities of building secure software and maybe even some takeaways that you can apply to your own projects.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's dive right in.
Let's do it.
The book starts by talking about security perimeters. And this is a concept I think we all kind of understand.
Right, in the real physical world.
In the physical world, yeah.
Like if you think about things like a locked gate, a fence around a property, or even airport security checkpoints.
Right, keeping those bad guys out.
Yeah, they're all kind of establishing this boundary
Yeah.
between what we want to protect and the outside world.
But in the software world, that perimeter's gotten a lot harder to define, hasn't it?
It really has.
I mean, with extranets, remote work, and cloud services, the edges of that perimeter are constantly in motion.
Exactly. It's not as simple as just securing a physical network anymore.
Right.
You know, we have to assume that anything outside the application's control can't be fully trusted.
Right. So how do we even begin to secure something with such a blurry perimeter?
Well, that's where the concept of attack surface comes in.
All right.
And this is essentially every possible entry point an attacker could use to gain unauthorized access or disrupt your software.
So we're talking about vulnerabilities in the code, open ports, places where users input data,
Yep.
APIs, all of that.
All that and more, yeah. Think of it like a fortress,
Okay.
but instead of walls and gates, it has countless windows and doors and tunnels and maybe even secret passages
Oh, wow.
that all need to be secured.
That need to be secured, yeah.
Yeah.
So mapping this attack surface must be quite the task.
It's a very complex process.
Yeah.
It involves a variety of techniques like, crawling through web pages,
Right.
testing every input field, even analyzing how users interact with the application
Right.
to uncover those weak spots.
Wow.
And it's crucial to remember that attackers can come from both inside and outside the organization. So you need to account for different attack vectors and capabilities.
And you mentioned internal attackers. That
Sure.
kind of leads me to another thought, and the book mentions this,
Yeah.
this idea of side channel attacks. And frankly, they sound terrifying.
They can be quite sophisticated.
Yeah.
Instead of directly targeting a weakness in the code,
Yeah.
they exploit the implementation itself.
Okay.
So, for instance, imagine a smart card, like a credit card that has a chip in it
Yeah.
that stores cryptographic keys, and it's supposed to be extremely secure, right?
All right.
But through a timing attack, an attacker could analyze how long
Oh,
different operations take
okay.
and actually deduce the secret key just by observing those timings.
So they're not attacking the code itself.
No.
They're attacking the way it's implemented
That's right. Yeah.
and how long it takes to do certain things.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's a very interesting area of security.
It is.
Yeah.
So even seemingly minor implementation details can become security vulnerabilities,
Absolutely.
which is why those robust defenses are so important.
Very important.
And the book outlines 10 best practices, and they're adapted from OWASP,
Yeah.
and they act as a blueprint for secure software development.
Yeah.
And they're not like rigid rules, but they're more like guiding principles
That's right.
to
Yeah.
help build a more secure and resilient system.
Exactly.
So let's dive into a few of these.
Okay.
One that stands out to me is defense in depth. And this feels intuitive.
Yeah.
multiple layers of security are better than relying on a single point of failure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Think about it like medieval castles, you know?
Oh, okay.
They had moats and walls and drawbridges and guards.
Right.
You know, if one layer was breached, there were others to back it up.
Yeah.
So in software, this could mean combining things like firewalls, intrusion detection systems,
Okay.
and strong authentication mechanisms.
Right. So if one security measure fails, the others are there to hopefully mitigate the damage.
Exactly.
What about fail securely?
Yeah.
That seems crucial for maintaining system integrity, especially when things go wrong.
It's absolutely critical.
Yeah.
What it means is that even when errors occur, your system should fail in a way that doesn't compromise security.
Okay.
So, for example, imagine a user authentication system.
Yeah.
If the database goes down,
Right.
a fail securely design would prevent any login attempts,
Interesting.
even for legitimate users,
Okay.
rather than risk granting unauthorized access.
So you're basically saying rather than leave the door wide open when there's an emergency,
Yes.
you lock everything down
Exactly.
until you can figure out what's going on.
Exactly. You're minimizing that potential for exploitation, even during unforeseen circumstances.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, another principle that stood out to me was avoid security by obscurity.
Yeah.
And, I mean, why is relying on hiding your security measures a bad idea?
Right.
It seems like if attackers don't know how you're protecting things, they would have a harder time breaking in.
It might seem that way,
Right.
but relying on secrecy alone is a very fragile approach.
Okay.
Think about it like this. You know, if you hide your house key under the doormat
Yeah.
and someone knows to look there,
Right.
the secrecy doesn't provide any real security.
Right. Yeah. A determined attacker will probably find a way in regardless.
Exactly.
So it's better to have strong, transparent defenses.
That's right.
So it's not about making your security system a secret.
Right.
It's about making it robust enough that it doesn't matter if people know how it works.
Exactly. And in many cases, that transparency can actually enhance security.
Interesting.
Yeah, when you're open about your security practices, it allows for greater scrutiny and feedback,
Okay.
which can help you identify and address vulnerabilities more effectively.
Interesting. Okay. So let's move on to establish secure defaults. What's the rationale behind shipping software with the highest security settings possible right out of the box?
Well, it's a proactive approach to minimizing risk.
Okay.
Think about it like having a home security system
Okay.
that's automatically armed when you leave,
Right.
rather than relying on you to remember to activate it every time.
So it's making the secure choice the easy choice,
Exactly.
both for developers and the end users.
That's right.
So users can always adjust the settings if they need to.
Yeah.
But starting with a strong baseline is crucial for a higher level of security
Absolutely.
from the get-go.
Yeah.
This is all really fascinating stuff, but I'm curious, how do these best practices actually translate into tangible benefits for the software itself?
Right.
It can't just be about security and isolation.
Yeah, you're right. And that's where the connection to non-functional requirements comes in,
Okay?
or NFRs. The book actually has a great table in it
Okay.
that maps these security practices to things like availability,
Right.
performance, and even privacy.
So it's about how these principles can positively impact other aspects of software development
Precisely.
beyond just the security itself.
Yeah, and there are some surprising connections.
Interesting.
For example, the principle of defense in depth, which
Yeah.
we discussed earlier, actually contributes to higher availability.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
If one system goes down, others are there to keep things running.
it's right.
It's like built-in redundancy for resilience.
Exactly. And another interesting connection is between writing clear and simple code and improving performance.
Okay.
And this falls under the keep security simple principle.
Wait, so less complex code equals faster software?
It can be counterintuitive.
Yeah, I would have thought it would be the opposite.
But when code is easier to understand and maintain, it often runs more efficiently. Think about it. Less complexity means fewer opportunities for bugs and vulnerabilities, which in turn reduces the need for resource-intensive security measures.
So that's a win-win.
Yeah.
Security and a performance boost.
Exactly.
Are there any other unexpected benefits that we should be aware of?
Well, consider the use a positive security model principle,
Okay.
which is also known as whitelisting.
Right.
This can actually contribute to better privacy
Okay.
by explicitly defining what is allowed.
Mm-hmm.
You make it much harder for sensitive data to leak out through unintended channels.
So instead of trying to block every bad thing,
Yeah.
you just focus on defining what's good.
Exactly.
And that inherently strengthens the privacy protections.
It's a shift from a reactive to a proactive security mindset.
Okay.
And it really highlights how these principles can have far-reaching implications beyond their immediate security goals.
This is really starting to paint a picture for me.
Yeah.
That security and resilience aren't just add-ons.
Right.
They're foundational to building robust and reliable software.
Yeah.
And it seems like embracing these principles can lead to a much better user experience overall.
For sure, when you prioritize security and resilience, you're building a stronger, more reliable foundation for your software.
Yeah.
And that translates to happier users, increased trust,
Right.
and ultimately a more successful product.
Okay, so we've covered some important ground here.
We have.
We've explored this evolving security perimeter in software,
Yeah.
the complexities of mapping these attack surfaces,
Mm-hmm.
and delved into a few key best practices for building more secure and resilient systems.
We did.
But there's still a lot more to unpack, isn't there?
There is. We've only just scratched the surface.
Okay.
We still need to explore the remaining principles from the book, talk about how to put these ideas into action,
Right.
and consider, the organizational and cultural shifts that are needed to truly embrace this security-first approach to software development.
Buckle up, everybody, because it sounds like we're just getting started on this deep dive.
That's right.
All right, so we've established that building secure and resilient software,
Yeah.
it's not just about writing good code.
It's much more than that.
It's incorporating those principles that we talked about
Right.
into every stage of the development process.
Exactly, yeah. It's about, fostering that security-conscious culture
Right.
throughout the entire life cycle of the software.
Yeah, okay. So let's dive back into those OWASP principles.
Okay.
One that I thought was particularly relevant in today's environment is run with least privilege.
Yeah, that's a big one.
What does that mean?
Well, it essentially means granting user accounts
Okay.
only the absolute minimum permissions they
That's-
need to perform their specific tasks.
So no more, no less.
No more, no less, just what they need.
So it's kind of like giving each person the key to their own office,
Yeah,
but not the master key to the entire building.
that's a great analogy, yeah.
So if an attacker gains control of a low-level user account
Right.
that only has access to a limited set of resources,
Yeah.
they can't wreak havoc across the entire system.
Exactly. You're minimizing the potential damage
Okay.
if that account is compromised.
So it limits the blast radius, as I said.
Exactly, yeah. Limits the blast radius.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. What about the principle of detect intrusions?
Yeah, this is a critical one as well.
Because it seems like no matter how strong your defenses are,
Right.
someone will try and get in.
Absolutely. You can't just build a fortress and assume it's impenetrable.
Right.
You also need those systems in place
Yeah.
to identify if someone is trying to breach the walls.
So we're talking about things like logs, monitoring systems, intrusion detection software.
Yep.
So like the security cameras and motion sensors of our digital fortress.
Exactly. So you need that ability to log security relevant events. Procedures in place to ensure those logs are actually reviewed regularly.
Okay.
And a clear plan of action
Right.
for responding appropriately.
So it's not enough to just have the alarm bells.
Right.
You got to have a trained security team ready to respond
Absolutely.
when those bells go off.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so that leads us to a couple of principles that I think are kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, these are interesting ones.
Don't trust infrastructure and don't trust services.
Right.
Hold on, aren't we supposed to trust the systems our software runs on?
Well,
And what about relying on third-party services? Isn't that common practice?
it is very common practice these days.
Yeah.
But blind trust can be very dangerous.
Okay.
You can't always assume that the underlying hardware,
Right.
the operating environment, or those external services are perfectly secure.
Right.
You know, they could have vulnerabilities of their own that
Right.
could be exploited to compromise your system.
So it's like knowing that even the strongest castle walls
Yeah,
can be undermined if someone digs a tunnel underneath.
exactly. Yeah. You got to be aware of those potential weak points
Right.
at every level.
Not just in your own code, but also in those external systems you rely on.
That's right.
So how do we balance this need for trust with a need for security.
Yeah, it's a difficult balance.
It does seem very tricky.
It's about finding that right balance between leveraging those benefits
Right.
of external systems and services,
Yeah.
while also mitigating the risks they introduce.
Okay.
So this might involve things like carefully vetting third-party providers,
Look.
implementing strong authentication mechanisms,
Right.
and regularly monitoring those systems for suspicious activity.
So it's not about avoiding those services altogether.
No, not at all.
It's about using them strategically and with appropriate safeguards.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Okay. That brings us to the last two principles in the set of 10.
Okay.
And these might sound obvious.
Yeah, they seem simple.
Keep security simple and fix security issues correctly.
Right.
Sometimes the simplest advice is the hardest to follow, but
It really is.
why is simplicity so important in security?
Well, complexity can actually be your enemy when it comes to security.
Okay.
The more complex your system is, the more difficult it is to understand, manage, and secure.
Okay.
Complex systems just introduce more opportunities for errors,
Right.
vulnerabilities, misconfigurations.
So keeping things simple reduces the attack surface,
It does.
and it makes it easier to spot and fix problems.
Exactly.
And when you do find those security issues, it's crucial to fix them correctly.
Yes. Very important.
And that doesn't just mean patching the immediate vulnerability.
Right.
It means understanding the root cause.
Yeah, get to the source of the problem.
Yeah, address it at a systemic level.
That's right.
Otherwise, you're just playing whack-a-mole with all these security vulnerabilities. All right, so we've now gone through all 10 of the OWASP principles that are outlined in the book.
We have.
It's a pretty comprehensive set of guidelines
It is.
to building secure software. But how do we actually put these into practice?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
It seems like a daunting task.
It can be,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Okay.
The key is to start with a solid foundation
Okay.
and build from there.
Right.
So this means establishing that security-first mindset
Right.
from the outset of any software development project.
Okay.
Integrating security testing
Yeah.
into every stage of the development life cycle,
Right.
and fostering a culture of continuous learning and improvement
Okay.
within your team.
So it's not just about having the right tools and technologies.
It's much more than that.
It's about cultivating the right mindset
Exactly.
and approach to security
Yeah, it's a cultural thing.
throughout the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Security is not just a technical issue, it's a cultural issue.
Right.
It needs to be embedded in the DNA
Wow.
of your organization,
Yeah.
from the developers writing the code to the executives making strategic decisions.
So you can't just bolt security on as an afterthought.
You can't, no.
It needs to be baked in
Baked in from the beginning.
to every aspect of the software development process.
Absolutely, yeah.
But how do we create that kind of culture shift? How do we get everyone on board?
Well, it starts with education.
Okay.
Everyone involved in the software development process needs to understand the importance of security,
Okay.
the potential risks, and how their role contributes to building more secure systems.
Right.
So this can involve things like, providing security training,
Okay.
establishing clear security policies and procedures,
Right.
and creating a system of rewards and recognition
Interesting.
for those who champion those security best practices.
So making security everyone's responsibility,
Exactly. It's a shared responsibility.
not just the job of a dedicated security team.
Right. When everyone takes ownership of security,
Mm.
you create a much stronger and more resilient software development environment.
This has been really insightful.
It's a fascinating topic.
It is. And it's clear that building truly secure and resilient software is a journey.
It is. It's an ongoing process.
It's not a destination.
That's right.
It requires constant vigilance, adaptation, and a willingness to embrace those core principles
For sure.
as guiding lights.
That's a great way to put it.
And it seems like the benefits extend far beyond just protecting data.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's about building trust with users, creating a more stable and reliable product,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately fostering a more responsible and ethical approach to software development.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah, by prioritizing security and resilience, we're not just building better software.
Right.
We're building a better digital world for everyone.
So where do we go from here? Like if somebody wants to actually take all this and put it into practice,
Yeah.
what's the first step?
I think the most crucial shift is moving from a a reactive mindset
Okay.
to a proactive one.
Okay.
So instead of waiting for security breaches to happen,
Right.
you embrace these principles from the get-go
Okay.
and make them an integral part of your software development process.
So it's not about just reacting to threats.
Right.
It's about anticipating them,
Yeah.
building those defenses
Yeah, get ahead of the game.
before they even arise.
Exactly.
Okay, so that involves educating your team,
Yes.
integrating security testing into every stage of development,
Right.
and really fostering that culture of continuous learning and improvement.
Yeah, always be learning, always be improving.
When it comes to security practices,
Absolutely.
and it sounds like, it's not enough to just have a dedicated security team.
It's not.
Everybody needs to be involved
Everybody needs to be aware.
and aware.
Yeah, developers, designers, testers,
Yeah.
project managers, everybody
Everybody's got to be on the same page.
on the same page, yeah.
Understanding their role in building these secure systems.
Absolutely.
And I imagine there's a ton of resources out there for people who want to learn more.
Oh, yeah, tons of great organizations out there like OWASP
Yeah.
that provide, really valuable information, tools, training materials.
Yeah.
To help developers build more secure software.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And there's a whole community of security experts who are passionate about sharing their knowledge and helping others.
Well, this deep dive has been awesome.
It's been a good conversation.
It has. It's really opened my eyes to the complexities of building truly secure and resilient software.
It is a complex topic.
And it's an ongoing process, and it requires that vigilance.
Yes.
And the adaptation.
Yeah.
And being willing to embrace these core principles.
That's right.
But it also seems incredibly rewarding.
It is.
Knowing that you're creating something that is not only functional,
Yeah.
but also safe and trustworthy.
You're making the digital world a better place.
Exactly. And as a final thought for our listeners.
I'd like to leave you with this question.
Okay.
If you were designing a security system for your dream home, what would your top 3 priorities be?
Ooh.
Based on what we talked about today.
Well, I'm definitely thinking defense in depth with multiple layers of security.
Okay.
Maybe even a moat.
I like it.
And definitely strong authentication on all entry points.
Good.
No more hiding keys under the doormat.
No more hiding keys under the doormat.
Sounds like I was paying attention.
You were.
No, it's a good reminder that these principles can be applied in all sorts of contexts.
They can.
Not just software development.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has been.
Thank you so much for guiding us through these complex topics.
My pleasure.
And sharing your expertise.
Happy to do it.
I feel like I've learned so much.
Good.
I know our listeners have too.
I hope so.
To our listeners, keep exploring this topic.
Yeah, keep learning.
It's fascinating, it's crucial,
very important.
and it's only going to become more important in the years to come.
It is.
Until next time, stay curious, stay secure,
Be safe out there.
and keep on diving deep.